culture is a feeling. It's not just words on a wall or words on a website or things like that. One of the biggest things I got from him is, you want to be a coach at Barcelona, you're not waiting until you're at Barcelona. You're being that coach now. I read, I travel, but I surf, I spend time with my kids, and that's why you try things, right? Honestly, this was the thing that I was most nervous about doing this, so pleasantly surprised.
This is the Heart of the Game podcast, brought to you by SciSports, and I'm your host, Brian McDonough. On this show, we bring you people who are at the center of football, the ones you see, those behind the scenes, and even individuals working jobs that you may never have imagined. But all have one thing in common. They are the heart of the game, and that's what matters. Today's guest on this first ever episode, inaugural episode of the Heart of the Game podcast, is Jack Rozier. Jack is the Director of Operations at the California Magic. Jack's been around the game in various different roles and brings tons of practical experience to this episode. And I guarantee you one thing, Jack's gonna drop at least one, maybe two, maybe multiple pieces of knowledge that I'm sure will change the way you think about the game we all love. Ladies and gentlemen, on this first episode of the Heart of the Game podcast, I bring you Jack Rozier, Director of Operations at the California Magic. Well, first question. I think, with our sport, everyone has an origin story, a time where they fell in love with the beautiful game. For you, I want to hear a little bit more about that. So when did you first fall in love with the sport of soccer?
Yeah, I grew up in a very small town. My parents worked a lot running a small business, so I spent a lot of time with a strict Catholic Lebanese grandmother who had very, specific ways to do everything, including teaching me tennis, how to dive into a pool, all these things. So, I was a very active boy, played all the sports, but I found soccer was this balance of chaos, but also expression. And I didn't have all these ideas at the time, because I was just a little boy, but I think it was, being on the soccer field was a place where, I felt free, able to kind of be creative, express myself, and disconnect from some of the rules and structure around me. And I think that's a feeling, even as I've gone deeper into the game now, over my life, that I still very much can connect with. And I think it's inherent in the game, the balance between the individual and the group, the structure and the individual expression. So, that's what it was for me. The sandy fields of Camden, South Carolina.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. I think for everyone, sport can of course be that kind of that outlet to express themselves, find yourself, find your calling. You obviously have, and to this day, you're still doing things in soccer. But it's not, we talked a little bit before leading up to this podcast. This isn't the first time we've talked. And you also enjoy other things off the pitch. I think that's also could set itself as a good foundation to where you are today. And one of those things is traveling. And if I recall, you mentioned some of the experiences you've had that kind of led to where you are today. Let's dive a little bit into that before we talk to the specifics of what you do at California Magic.
Yeah. I think, before I started traveling, sports and soccer was mostly like a individual or kind of team activity for me. And I love that. But I grew up in, like I said, in a small town, but my parents had grown up in the DC suburbs. So we'd go and visit cousins. I knew there was a wider world out there. And after I finished undergrad, a friend was going to be starting grad school at Cal in California, and or out here in the Bay. And we made a plan basically to spend 6 months traveling in South America before moving out to California. And that was literally a life-changing experience for me, not just in terms of the game, but putting myself in situations where I had to kind of figure out what to do, scrap a little bit. But soccer, football, was, this blessing for me, because I was able to connect with people in ways that, my friend that I was traveling with was fluent in Spanish. So they did a lot of the, logistics and planning and stuff, but I was connecting with people. I was getting invited to places, and just through the game. Right. And those experiences, whether it was a hostel in Buenos Aires where I met some people watching a game, and those people have become lifelong friends. They were in my wedding. One of them's a scout for a club in the UK, and another became an academy coach in an MLS academy, and through them, a lot of opportunities to just get more connected to the game and try out new things, came from that. So yeah, traveling, I guess I would also say, I spent a lot of time in my early 20s. I was working in schools, so the summers were free. So from those contacts, I then had the time to go crash on their couch in Finland for a summer. My sister had moved to Germany, so I'd go crash with her and just walk around, to clubs and just go talk to people. So I think that reference of that extended travel period really kind of opened my eyes to the game as not just something that I could experience with me and my friends, but something where we were literally connected, across the globe.
Yeah, I think football, soccer, it's almost like an additional global passport, right? And sometimes when you travel within your own country, so going from South Carolina to California, there's a stark difference, obviously, between the two, I'm sure, having traveled myself. And then when you set up shop and you move over there and you have these shared experiences, that's where kind of putting yourself out there and the beautiful game can kind of step in. It was really interesting. I love the travel global aspect of the sport. I think a lot of our listeners today will be tuning in from all different various areas. So definitely comment where you're from, where you're watching from, where you're listening from. That'd be very much appreciated. But let's talk a little bit about the seminars you've done and the different learning experiences. You've put a lot of these connections into action, I've seen. So you've kind of tied back those connections to specific seminars, events you've attended abroad with some major clubs. Can we talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, I think it all, came from that experience also of flying down to South America, just knowing I wanted to be there for months and not necessarily knowing where I'd end up. When that was over and I was moving out to California, I saw an U.S. Soccer Federation A license renewal course. I had a D license at the time, but I wrote to them and I said, "Hey, is there space in the course? I've got just enough money to pay for it and get on a plane and go, and I can crash with my sister when I'm over there." And they were like, "Well, let's see if we fill it up with the people who are actually supposed to go, but if there's space, you can go." So it turned out that there was a spot for me in the course, and I just audited the course. But it was, I was able to visit the Dutch Federation in Zeist, Ajax, PSV Eindhoven, AZ Alkmaar, Bayer Leverkusen, FC Köln, and just being able to kind of observe and interact for sure, but see what the game at the highest levels, like what the standards were, observing training, seeing the presentations, how the professionals there carried themselves, how they interacted, the respect, all of these things. It was hugely impactful, and helped. Experiences like that help you locate yourself, helps you identify your gaps. Mm-hmm. It spurs you on. Those little wins help you kind of set a new benchmark and goal for yourself. And from experiences like that, I continued to pursue licenses and some of the formal things, but also the informal education. So, like I said, spending time in Finland and taking that to the point of, observe. A friend had connections at an academy there, and being able to go and observe and help out and just do some kind of informal education. This just kind of continues on as part of how you do things. And another example would be attending MIT Sloan. Mm-hmm. As I started to get more into data and analytics, I was like, let's go. Let's throw myself into the deep end, and being at Sloan was amazing. All the various projects and work that people were doing, very inspiring. But also on the flight back, I met an analyst for the Warriors. Right, just started talking to him about things we're doing here at our club at Magic. He was. We just, having dialogue, making relationship, and he connected me with a friend of his who ended up volunteering with us at our club for 2 years. He'd drive from Sunnyvale, which can be an hour and 45-minute drive, just to come and help out and stuff like that. Those are the things that really, inspire you, but also push your level, because this is a person who works at a very high level in analytics, but was just kind of a fan of the game and just wanted to be involved, right?
I feel very inspired from just listening to this. And the thing is, kind of put the energy out in the world that you want to get back, is kind of what you're saying. And one thing obviously the listeners, unless you have access to my email, and you can read my emails, which hopefully not. When I was emailing Jack back and forth about doing this podcast, which, by the way, Jack, you're doing a terrific job. It's your first podcast, but you said, I want to give this a shot. This is something I've never done before. You're crushing it, by the way, but that was pretty cool too. So taking that same attitude towards being on that flight, having that engaging conversation, going to Finland, doing different things throughout, going to California, relocating, all of this has served you very well in your career so far.
Yeah. I mean, there's, there will always be people out there that, your experience, your background doesn't meet their expectations of what the standard is. And that's fine. Right. But I think the more you focus on yourself and the people around you that have the spirit and energy, that you're trying to bring, that's forward thinking, that's optimistic, that's wanting to create things and solve problems. It's not like a straight path, right? And it's still very much a journey that I'm on. But I think, I've developed a trust in myself, and through like having that fed back to me from peers, that makes me feel like hopping onto a podcast is a good idea. Not something I would have sought out or thought to do, but because of those other experiences, maybe me talking to you today, it connects a dot for someone else out there and makes them want to, take a risk.
Exactly. And one thing, actually, you did mention, and I have to bring ourselves back a little bit, that you have been to Zeist. So I'm not sure if you remember, that's the headquarters of SciSports, so at the KNVB campus. And one thing that's kind of preluding later on in the show, so hopefully you did some studying while you're over there visiting the clubs, we're going to do trivia questions. 5 questions, Jack, about paying homage to our Dutch heritage, Dutch football, professional football, and I'll hit you with 5 questions at the end of this podcast. So for anyone listening, stay tuned for that. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. So one thing, I know we talked about your role at the California Magic. You kind of said you've done a lot of different things there, but you're a little bit more behind the scenes. And being at the heart of the game, it doesn't necessarily mean being front and center. Sometimes, actually, in fact, the people behind the scenes are always just as important, what you're doing day to day. I'm really kind of curious what you do as a director of operations, and the energy that we've talked about, the shared experiences that it sounds like some experience we've had with putting energy out there, getting it back. How does that serve you in your role as director of operations at the California Magic?
Yeah. Well, I would start with I've been in other leadership roles and not not everywhere. I'll just say, like, Magic is a special place, and part of that is that let's say my role is behind the scenes or off the field, but there's a respect and appreciation amongst our leadership and our organization for those things. So I think that goes a long way, right? There's a kind of, what's your personality type, what's your default, and what are you best suited for, but also, do you feel recognized, seen, and valued, and not just me and my role, but the people who are maybe more forward facing. Like, there's a cost, there's an energy that takes from them, and that's something that I have to respect. So I think to your question, kind of what is operations, it's everything. It's receiving packages here at the office and taking out the trash. It's answering emails and building website, conducting surveys. It's but it's also building and aligning databases across competitions, attendance, surveys, and those things inform strategic long-term decisions. So every day is something different, and you develop systems for the things that you don't enjoy as much, or repetitive tasks, let's say, and that buys you time that you can let things simmer and tinker with things and try to innovate. But I really have to stress that I am afforded that room and that space because of what other people absorb. The more forward facing people, they're absorbing a lot for me to allow me that time and space. So it's very much a team effort, right? So I might be behind the scenes, but I'm playing my part in this team as well.
That's really cool. And California Magic, let's talk a little bit more about the Magic. If you can tell us a little bit more about the club, the location, your youth programs, just kind of a synopsis of that as well. I think that's important to kind of plug California Magic here as well.
Yeah, we're located in Orinda, California, just on the other side of the hills from Oakland in the San Francisco Bay Area. We currently serve about 600 kids and families, primarily in the Lafayette, Orinda, Moraga area, but also kind of Oakland, Berkeley, and Walnut Creek in the other directions. We're a young club, founded in 2012. So I think that's also a part of this pioneering spirit here, and where we're taking some foundations and existing conventions, but we're questioning a lot of things, and we're really looking to, in my experience, and I've been here for 7 years at this point. There's so much moving, shifting, distraction in the ecosystem around us, and I think having come to Magic with about 10, 15 years coaching experience before, I think what I have sought in coming here and what has been really invigorating is that it is a place where those platitudes of focus on what you can control, focus on yourself, where those things are embodied at every level. And I think especially with the chaos of the youth sports landscape around us, that's been critical to get to a point where I feel like, yeah, I'm doing my best work.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think I'm sure at the club level, the youth club level, in fact, we see it constantly potentially comparing yourselves to neighboring clubs, or what are they doing, what's happening, what does it look like, the system, and it's very different region to region, of course. So let's talk a little bit about that. You mentioned kind of taking a step back, California Magic giving you the ability to be strategic, think and do things in your own manner. With that, what's kind of the strategy you have with youth, when it comes to developing, in terms of what type of mentality do you ingrain in the players?
Yeah, I think, it's you probably see it on every website, or things like that. But I think the two things that I just know from being in other environments that was different here, like it's actually living and breathing on a daily basis, and something that we're fighting for is culture is a feeling, right? Mm-hmm. Meaning, how it's not just words on a wall or words on a website or things like that. It's the quality and care in your interaction with people, whether that's coach to coach or coach to player or coach to parent or player to player. So those are the things that we're actively looking to shape and mold on a daily basis. We have weekly staff meetings where we don't just talk X's and O's, but we talk about issues of culture, going on in our teams and share strategies and things like that. So I think, starting with the people first, their attitude, their emotional state, to put people in a position where they can perform at their optimal best. So that's kind of the starting point. And then the second piece would be, training is what we do. We know and we're explicit amongst our staff and also with our families that we're going to be judged most likely by the games, right? Yeah. Because that's what people come out for. That's there's a winner and a loser, or maybe there's a tie, right? There's something objective there. But training is what we do, and that's our craft. That's where we do our work. And so just accepting that dynamic, that we're most of the real work that we would say that we do, whether it's on the field in training or off the field in the preparation and the analysis and the reflection, most of that is invisible to people. And I think when you come into something with a mindset like that, you're not expecting anything to be handed to you. You're not expecting, you have to earn those little wins. And you also have to be very clear around like what success is for you. We know we're not a professional club. We're in a developmental zone. And so in terms of like analysis and how we set those goals, how we know who we are, how we judge ourselves, we have to be very reflective, self-reflective, and use the data available to us to say, okay, this is where we are right now. This is a realistic goal for us. Let's do the work, and then let's measure again. So I think it kind of starts with the culture and the feeling, and that comes from our founding coaches and our founding family. So Haris Obic and Jasko Begovic and Tony Neto and a bunch of other people I could name who set that foundation, and that's something that's still very much central to the club today, and that is what allows all of the analytical stuff in the goal setting and the analysis and progress and things like that to happen.
So you mentioned data. Of course, we're going to get to that. And you mentioned analysis, analytics. I want to talk a little bit about that. It's become such a front and center piece of the modern game in football, analyzing data. And I'm kind of curious what you do at California Magic when it comes to that. And you taking like a more of a strategic lens. Of course, results aren't overnight, right? Sometimes parents might not understand that. If there's a specific tournament you're playing in and you're looking at the wins and losses, but you are developmental. So let's talk a little bit more about the data and how that plays a role in development in California Magic.
Yeah, well, I mean, in my role, because I'm primarily, off the field, that, it's the same like process that we apply to all the various aspects of the club. So first we look to the information available to us to say, this is where we are right now. And the more we can repeat that over time, we get a sense of what a normal growth rate or kind of what normal is. And that also allows us to look less at other people and more at ourselves. And then, we can, when we have a sense of kind of where we are, what the trend is, then we can set goals. And as far as what that looks like on the field, whether that's individual development plans, team performance, or club level, KPIs or key performance indicators, that is the process that we look to apply, because that's, we know, and especially, as I said, with training, those are the variables, those are the conditions that we can control, right? So data and this process of implementation, reflection, and analysis, and iteration, it applies across all things. For someone like me, whether it's the annual calendar or facilities or scheduling, but it applies on the field as well. And I think a goal for us is, as kids play and get older, they get better, and I think a lot of people often point to, like, look, they're improving, but we want to know, how much more they're improving because of what we're doing, how much more, because of, what is the influence of our environment. A lot of people try to take credit essentially for the effort of individual players, or just what would be natural growth. And that's where comparison with others can get really, can be a slippery slope. So that's why we try to look at ourselves. How are we performing, measuring against our best or our standard? And that's where we try to set goals and establish standards for ourselves.
I think it's really important too, taking a look and keeping the lens internal, right? So how are you measuring yourself in terms of, even from a coaching standpoint, your standards, what you put out there, player to player with those individual development plans? What does that look like, of course, over time? To your point, some of it can be natural growth, of course, the progression of just playing and getting minutes, but then some of it can also be data driven. And I kind of want to ask the next question, because you obviously have some experience with data and in the way you look at it. For any club coaches out there, any directors, anyone who's listening, or just anywhere in the youth game, would you recommend that everyone leverages data any way that they possibly can? Obviously, there's different levels to that, and some people need to grow into it. But what would you say to someone who's maybe a little bit anxious about starting to analyze data in a way that would benefit or seemingly benefit their club?
Yeah. I'd say, start with what you have and start with what you know. And, it's all about asking questions, right? I think in terms of like from the coach perspective, something that was super impactful for me was, my eyeball, my experience as a coach told me, this is a problem for our team. This is something we need to focus on. And through, through analysis, through film and analysis, I was able to measure that. I've, filming my training, going back and watching that, and, taking notation. And, sometimes that means, you learn that, like, maybe your eye is being drawn to the wrong thing or different things. And so it's a matter of, like, refining how you're looking for that thing. And then other times it confirms, what you're seeing. And I think that not only, like, gives you clarity in your mind, but also in your ability to communicate the plan for your players and your team and with your families or with your director of coaching or whatever. So I think in terms of a starting point, it's difficult, to see some analysis that's been conducted in some other environment. I think a pitfall that people fall into is they see YouTube videos or stuff from Sloan, that's this analysis is being conducted at the professional level, and it's like, how does that apply to where I am? So I say start where you are, right? Go really deep. Ask questions, share what you're doing with other people. Those conversations are where, the people that really care, that are really invested in these things will say, hey, I saw something that was similar to this. You might be interested in that, right? And that's where you take a next step. And I think, we can talk about where, SciSports, fits into things now for us, but I think just broadly, as a philosophy, let's say, as a coach development tool, player development tool, where it really starts is, it's not to replace your eyeball. It's to enhance. It's to minimize your biases. Which could be personality. It could be how you played as a player. Or the position you played.
Yeah.
You might have biases around that. There's all kinds of things where being able to kind of step back, not be in an emotional state, see the training, with a fresh eye. There's so many things that can give you.
Yeah, I think typically, the best coaches, the best managers, really anything you do in your life, if you're able to be real with yourself, what are the things that I find most important in a specific player? Let me write those down and then take a look at that. Am I being biased towards that? And then let's use data, let's use video to kind of see if maybe I am. Maybe there are areas of the game that I'm not necessarily visualizing because I'm busy watching something else. And I think that's super important. And yeah, that's definitely, data can be a great equalizer when it comes to that and removing all biases. So I'm glad you brought that up. Now you've been a player, you've been a coach, you're director of operations. You've done a lot in your career. I'm an educator. I'm curious. So at the California Magic, if you had to say a couple of your proudest accomplishments that are on or even off the field, we've talked a little bit about both today. What would those maybe be?
Yeah. I think on the field is hard because there's so many. I've been coaching almost 20 years now, and and then playing for a long time before that. There's so many like individual moments that come to mind, just like whether it be personally playing or coaching teams and stuff. But I think I'm very much a John Wooden type, or that's my archetype in a sense of it's really the feeling, the memories in terms of on the field that I think the through line between them is having this feeling that not just myself but the group, the team, everyone was in that flow state or just kind of locked into their best at that time.
Sure.
And and most of those, I don't know what the game state was, if we were winning or losing or tied. It's just that the feeling of looking around the field and just not even needing to communicate in certain moments, because you're just what everyone's thinking. You have a plan, and that flow, that automatic, kind of action with you and your teammates, or with you and your players. In terms of on the field, I don't think it gets better than that. I've won games and been in big game situations and all those things, but I think it's that feeling on the field.
And before we get to off the field, I love your shout out to John Wooden. So obviously you're a student of the game, some ball knowledge there. We're not talking football, soccer, we're talking basketball. For anyone who's tuning in, we got a big international crowd. Who is John Wooden? Like, if not everyone knows.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to? UCLA basketball coach, but even before that, a high school basketball coach. I read, I don't know how much you want, but
this is interesting.
What I say is, eventually set standards for championships and things like that. I think it was 11 and 10 year, or 10 and 11 years or something like that at UCLA. But reading his biographies, reading his books, learned a lot more about his upbringing and his life before the success. And the mantras and the way of thinking, the way of behaving, the way of treating other people are things that were ingrained in him in his home life, in his spirituality and things like that. And I think one of the biggest things I got from him is, and this is something that is said here, is that, you want to be a coach at Barcelona. You're not waiting until you're at Barcelona. You're being that coach now, and that's something that is part of why I came here to Magic, because of that philosophy, that mantra, and something that, as I was developing as a coach and looking for, resources and inspiration and knowledge, that was really impactful to me, because it made me see how important my upbringing and all of those things were to the coach, and the person that I was today, and be really intentional about that, and share that with my players or my families. And I think those are things also that ground you in your identity when you're riding the highs and the lows, No,
I just wanted to kind of get some insights there. I know who John Wooden is, but for a lot of our listeners who are, listening from abroad, they might not know, college basketball as much, of course, but definitely a legendary coach. And his philosophy that on the field, on the court for John Wooden, off the field, off the court, that carries over to off the pitch. So you're something proud off the pitch. You have a lot of interests, I know. It sounds like reading's one of them. Family potentially too. Talk a little bit about that as well.
Oh yeah. Well, I was thinking, when you said off the field, I was thinking like kind of in my role here. So
and that's fine as well. But yeah, whatever. Either.
Yeah. Well, I can touch on both, but here we had an opportunity a few years ago to participate in an internship with a local high school. Mm-hmm. This was right out of the pandemic. We had two students from a local high school come and intern with us twice a week for about 6 months, and we kind of just steep them in like our day-to-day operations here, but also had a longer term project where they decided to build a database of birth dates that come from our competitions, where we have the birth dates of our players and the opponents. So they built a database, and we did a study of relative age effect, and they built a dashboard in Tableau that basically analyzed how the distribution of birth months for us relative to our opponents. And that's research that we still use today. Wow. So that was really inspiring. I think another one was we had a coach who was here for many years until recently, who, when we first started working together, like it was like, how do you use Excel? What is Excel, right? And just seeing the work and grind and that spirit of asking questions and pursuing, asking for feedback on their work, and that person now is an analyst for a professional club. So I think off the field is very similar in some ways. So on the field, it's that flow state. It's the courage of people and their vulnerability and their development over time. And now just as a father now with a 2-year-old, it's like this new twist to it, where they don't even know why they should be nervous or hide their feelings or their thoughts and all this stuff. And it's really invigorating to be kind of connected to that on a daily basis, because I think that person is in all of us, but you have some hard experiences and you think maybe you need to hide parts of yourself or things like that. Somebody's going to use it against you or whatever, and the reality is that might be true, right? But there are more people out there that they want the world to be a better place. They want you to succeed. They want to succeed. They want you to succeed. And they view working together as a path forward for everybody. So yeah, that was kind of I think being a father is pretty sick. It's pretty dope. So I'm very proud of that.
Oh, it's really cool. I guess I have one question around that, and then we're going to go into the trivia. You're obviously a busy guy. You have a lot going on with the California Magic, and for anyone listening, I guess, You seem very organized too, just from listening to you. So that definitely helps. But how do you balance all your time with the family? There's a lot of people in your shoes out there who maybe they're considering getting into coaching. Maybe they coach 5 or 6 teams right now.
Yeah.
Maybe they do have a full-time job and then they coach on the side, outside of that. So how do you balance family, coaching, all of these ambitions you have? I think everyone will look at it in a different lens. Kind of talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. I think, I'm still trying to get to know myself better, and in answering those questions.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, having an internal dialogue, having people around you that you can talk to about those things. It's not necessarily your partner, right? Those are big pieces. And I think, for me in my 20s, before I was in soccer full time, I was working in schools as a teacher and a mental health counselor. So I picked up a lot of things from peers and mentors around me that helped me kind of in my process of figuring out what was important to me, and I had that experience, in my mid 20s, I would say, where I was thinking that I would pursue coaching, as that path. And I think while it wasn't like a conscious effort, I think, I didn't have a journal where I was like, today, I moved closer to my goal, but I think having an internal dialogue and talking, sharing kind of your reflections and goals with people around you, you get that feedback. And I think I was able to realize then that my passion and my skill was not necessarily aligned with a future where I could coach one team and bring enough value to live off of that, right? So as that waned, other opportunities presented themselves where my skills and passions could be expressed, and I found, as I developed those skills, like data visualization tools and working with data and solving problems at the club level, that there was value there. And so, where that's led me now is, I'm 39, so I'll be 40 soon, but in my 30s, I had to scratch and claw, but ultimately that was moving me in a direction where instead of adding more teams, I was adding value in different ways. And I think something any young coach or young soccer professional out there should be thinking about is that, this is inherently a nights and weekends gig. Even if you're off the field, we do webinars and phone calls and things when parents and players are not in school or not in work, right? So I think you have to think about the reality of that as kind of inherent in the activity itself, and put yourself in a position where you're developing skills and that's aligned with your passion that can add value in different ways. Unless the field is your passion, and then you just have to be so good that it can justify one team or 2 teams or something like that. And that's a pathway that's available now that wasn't when I was growing up, pre-94 World Cup. So all the options are on the table, I think, for young people in soccer in the United States. It's just you got to be real, with yourself and with other people.
That's good. No, I love that. And it's just like players have different stages of development. You do in your adulthood as a coach too. One thing that my dad has always said, which I like, you've dropped a couple good quotes here and some life lessons, but he always used to say, no knowledge is wasted knowledge too. Mm-hmm. So even though you might feel like right now you're not doing exactly what it is you want to do, if you extract some learnings, if you stay focused, if you're at least moving the needle, you'll eventually get there if you keep working hard. And and you never know when those skills on that job that might not be related to football, might not be related to soccer, will actually come in handy later on, and what doors those will open.
100%. And that's where I think there's there's a big tension, I think, in coaching or the youth game, and I think it probably exists in professional academies and beyond as well. Like you're working with people, right? It's a relationship based. Even being on the ops side, it's like in service of kids and families, in service of a community. It is a relationship based service that we're offering here, and that takes like emotional energy. It takes it whether you think about that or not, that is what's going on. And I think that's where knowing yourself, like me, I read, I travel, but I surf, I spend time with my kids, and trying to carve the time out for those things, really protect those things. That's what allows you to kind of stay fresh, stay balanced, be able to be inspired and so on. But you have to fight for those things.
Yeah. Well, Jack, you've been the perfect guest. I would say you are at the heart of the game. Like, this is exactly a guy who's at the heart of the game. And this is, been a great conversation. I really appreciate all these insights and you kind of spilling some knowledge here, as well as just sharing some personal experiences too. This has been really, really good.
Well, now here comes the big letdown with the trivia.
I have the trivia right here. So the answers aren't on the back. So I have a separate answer. Let's get this going here. So guys, the trivia we talked about a little bit earlier in the show, and hopefully, Jack, your time in Zeist in the Netherlands, visiting these Dutch football clubs, professional clubs, will serve you well in this trivia. We have 5 questions. Everything's relative, but some have been a little easier, some are hard. We have one question that is actually more American, angled. So that's kind of interesting too. So let's get started here. I'm going to pull out the answer key on my end. You can't see that. But first question I have for you, and it's multiple choice too. So you can shout out, A, B, C, D. First question is, who scored the iconic volley that sealed Netherlands' Euro 1988 final victory against the Soviet Union? Was it A, Ruud Gullit? Was it B, Marco van Basten? Was it C, Ronald Koeman? Or was it D, Frank Rijkaard?
I'm hoping my confidence doesn't betray me here, but it's B.
It is B, Marco van Basten. You are correct. So that is one for one. You're on the board. And what we'll do too, guys, with these trivia questions on the Heart of the Game podcast is we'll actually have a scoreboard too. So not to add more pressure, but this will be on full blast after. You'll see where you end up versus all the other guests.
No pressure now. I'm on the board. You're
on the board.
Goose egg was the real pressure. So.
Okay. So this question is kind of a little bit more related to American football, soccer, however, with a Dutch twist. Which American footballer holds the record for the most goals scored in a single Eredivisie season? And we're talking league goals here. Mm-hmm. Is it A, Clint Dempsey? Is it B, Christian Pulisic? Is it C, Josie Altidore? Or is it D, Ricardo Pepi?
I'm not up on my Pepi. I think it's Josie Altidore.
That is correct. So Josie Altidore, the 2012-2013 season, scored 23 league goals for AZ Alkmaar.
That's right.
That is correct. 2 for 2. It's a good start. I mean, here we go.
My goal, pull the screen back. My goal was 2. Okay, so I've already.
Question number 3. I feel like Regis filming here. Question number 3. Which club has the 3rd most Eredivisie titles? So we're talking about the first division titles in history. 3rd. Is it A, Ajax? Is it B, PSV Eindhoven? Is it C, Feyenoord? Or is it D, AZ Alkmaar?
I'm going with C. I'm going with Feyenoord.
You're correct. 3 for 3. It is Feyenoord. That's a tough one. And Feyenoord, holds the record all time after Ajax, PSV, and then it's Feyenoord. Question number 4. This is kind of challenging actually. So this is a little bit tougher. Which coach is most often credited as the architect of total football? Is it A, Louis van Gaal? Is it B, Guus Hiddink? Is it C, Rinus Michels? Or is it D, Marco van Basten?
C.
You are correct. You are correct. Okay. That is 4 for 4. All right. You're blowing this out of the water here. And number 5, last but not least, the last question. And this one was actually rated as hard, just so you know.
Okay.
But you are 4 for 4, so I think you're doing quite well for yourself. Who converted the early penalty for the Netherlands in the 1974 World Cup final against West Germany? We're going back now over 50 years for this question. Okay. Is it A?
I'm gonna go into my dad's embryo or whatever. So try to answer this. My mom's embryo, whatever. Okay, go ahead.
Is it A, Johan Cruyff? Is it B, Johan Neeskens? Is it C, Johnny Rep? And I apologize if I'm butchering any of these pronunciations. Or is it D, Ruud Krol?
Now I wanna, when you guess, you're supposed to go with C, but I'm gonna go with B.
B is correct. Johan Neeskens. So what we're gonna do too, by the way,
I said I was guessing, but it's deep in the brain there.
Yeah, he scored the early penalty in the 1974 final to put the Netherlands ahead at the time. Wow, 5 for 5. That's incredible. So good job there. As we have in every episode, we'll have different guests come on. I'll ask them 5 questions. And then, Jack, this just means that you're going to have to come back later on. We're going to probably do more of like a March Madness trivia type setup next year, just so you know. So 5 for 5. Okay. Good work.
That was fun. That's why you try things, right? Honestly, this was the thing that I was most nervous about doing this. So pleasantly surprised.
It must have been the time spent in the Netherlands. You were studying. Yeah. Well, once again, Jack, thank you. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Yeah, amazing. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, and guys, if you enjoyed this episode of the Heart of the Game podcast, you can find us wherever you listen to your pods. We're on Spotify, we're on Amazon, anywhere, Google, wherever you listen to your podcast, as well as YouTube. You can also find SciSports, who will be hosting the podcast. This is the Heart of the Game podcast brought to you by SciSports. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, all socials. Once again, this is Brian McDonough with the first episode, the first of many, the Heart of the Game podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next episode.